Welcome to the Sex Science Podcast, where we turn the latest peer-reviewed research on intimacy and sexuality into fun, accessible conversations. Generated by AI and fact-checked by experts, the Sex Science Podcast was created by LaShaw to empower you through knowledge. So, join us as we explore pleasure, relationships, human connection, and everything in between.
Send nudes. It's a phrase you've probably heard, maybe even seen online.
Definitely.
Today we're doing a deep dive into teen sexting. But specifically, we're looking at it from the teenager's point of view, how they see the education they get about it.
Exactly. We've looked at research based on interviews with about 30 teenagers aged 11 to 17 over in Perth, Australia.
Okay.
And the real mission here is to get a handle on what they think about how schools, how parents are tackling sexting. Because, usually it's the adults talking.
Right. The adult concerns dominate.
Yeah. And the teens' own voices, they kind of get lost. We want to bring those voices forward a bit more.
Okay, let's jump in then. One thing that seemed to come through loud and clear from the research is just how common this is.
Oh, absolutely. There was a survey. 87% of Australian teens said they'd sent or received sexually explicit images. 87%.
Wow. That's huge. It suggests it's really not this fringe activity for many of them.
No, not at all. For a lot of these teens, it's seen as, almost a normal part of relationships today. Modern dating, intimacy, it's just part of the picture.
Which is probably quite different from how many adults frame it, with worries about innocence lost and things like that.
Totally different. And interestingly, they sometimes engage in sexting before other things we might think come first, like kissing or even being in a formal relationship.
Huh. So it flips the script on that traditional progression.
It really does. But while teens might see it as, part of life, the law sees it very differently. That's where it gets complicated.
Right, yeah. Let's get into that. It's not just about personal views, is it? There are real legal things to think about.
Absolutely. In some parts of Australia, like Western Australia, where this study was done, sending sexual images if you're under 18, that can actually be classified as child exploitation material.
Even if it's consensual. Between two teenagers.
Even if it's consensual. And here's the paradox. In WA, sexual intercourse is legal over 16. But sending a sext is illegal until you're 18. Even just making an image for yourself, not even sharing it, is technically illegal if you're under 18.
That seems inconsistent, doesn't it?
Very. And the research suggests this approach, criminalizing it, might actually punish the very people it's supposed to protect. It doesn't really line up with what teens are actually doing online.
So you have this widespread behavior tangled up in some pretty tricky legal stuff. But the research didn't just look at that, did it? It also covered the potential harms.
Yes, definitely. The teens were very aware of the dark side, so to speak.
Like what sort of things?
They talked about revenge porn, though the term often used now is image-based sexual harassment and abuse, IBSHA.
Right, IBSHA.
Yeah, and cyberflashing, getting unwanted explicit pictures, the unsolicited dick pics and things like that. Cyberstalking, harassment online, even deepfakes came up. They know these risks exist.
And it sounds like they actually want better information on dealing with the bad stuff.
Right.
Especially the unwanted images.
That's a really key point. They talked a lot about consent needing it both ways for sending and receiving, and the sense of betrayal when images get leaked without permission. That came through strongly.
That makes sense.
What's worrying, though, is that apparently this non-consensual sharing, it's reported to be pretty common.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Which really underlines the need for education, surely. But the feedback on the current education doesn't sound great.
No, not really. Most of them just remembered being told don't do it. That was the message.
Just don't.
Pretty much. And they described school assemblies as, often shaming. No real chance to ask questions. And the videos they showed, they used words like cringeworthy, over-dramatized, just fear-based stuff that didn't feel real or relevant. There was this one example they mentioned. A video where someone got called starry because they had a tiny star tattoo near their hip bone in a leaked nude photo.
Okay.
And the teens just found that ridiculous. The focus was on the tattoo detail, not the actual sending of the nude or the non-consensual sharing. It made the whole message feel, completely disconnected.
So the shock tactics aren't working. They know the laws, sort of, but it doesn't stop them. And these messages just miss the mark.
That's what they're saying. Online safety education was described as mixed at best, sometimes inappropriate, or just clashing with what they actually experience. It's all about the bad stuff, the don't send nudes line. And they don't feel comfortable talking to parents either, who often just give really basic advice like, oh, just try and avoid it.
So if that just say no, fear-based stuff isn't landing, what do they think would be better? It seems like their view changes when sexting happens inside a relationship.
Yes, that's a really important distinction they make. Most felt it was okay, even acceptable, to share nudes consensually if it's within a relationship built on trust.
They see the relationship as a kind of safe space for it.
Exactly. The idea is that trust should prevent those images from going anywhere else. But they feel like education never talks about that possibility that sexting could be part of a healthy relationship, which is how they experience it sometimes.
And they had ideas for how education could change, like moving beyond just warnings.
Yeah, they did. One teen actually suggested the message should be more like, share images only when you both agree.
Focusing on consent and agreement within the relationship.
Precisely. A more maybe sex-positive approach that stresses privacy and respect within that trusted context. And they also really want to learn about their right not to get unwanted pictures and what to do about them.
Instead of just focusing on getting in trouble with the law.
Right. They feel the focus now is all legal consequences, police, punishment. Not enough about their rights, their developing sexuality online, how to navigate it respectfully.
It really sounds like they're asking for a fundamental shift in the whole conversation.
That's the heart of it. They basically said current education is unfit for purpose, too risk-focused. The main takeaway is just sexting's bad, full stop.
So what's the alternative they're suggesting?
They want educators, policymakers, parents maybe, to take a more sex-positive stance. One that acknowledges the risks, sure, but also understands that for many teens, sexting is part of exploring their sexuality.
So balance is key. Teaching things like mutual respect, consent, online safety, but doing it in a way that respects their experiences and their growing agency.
Exactly. The research pointed to the UK, actually, where there's apparently a move away from just focusing on the law and shaming, more towards informed choices, ethics, responsibilities, understanding yourself sexually.
Kind of like how abstinence-only sex ed is often seen as ineffective.
That's the comparison made, yeah. If this behavior is happening, the argument goes, shouldn't we equip teens with skills to navigate it safely? Give them balanced info on consent, on risk, support their autonomy. A bit like teaching safe sex practices before the legal age of consent for intercourse.
It's about respecting the digital body, consent, boundaries.
Yes. And even teens who don't sex themselves often recognized it as something others do to build trust and intimacy.
So the overall plea seems to be for an approach that validates their reality while focusing firmly on consent and respect.
That's the clear message coming from these teens.
Okay, so let's quickly recap. Teenagers often view sexting quite differently from adults more integrated into relationships. They find the current education, well, pretty negative and ineffective.
Right, fear-based and out of touch.
And they're asking for a more balanced, you could say sex-positive approach. One that actually talks openly about consent, about respect, about safety in their digital lives.
Which leaves us with a question for you listening. If this is how teenagers see digital intimacy and the current education isn't working for them, what would a truly fit-for-purpose approach look like?
Yeah, how do we empower them with knowledge and skills rather than just warning them off? Something to think about.
Thank you for listening to the Sex Science Podcast brought to you by LaShaw. We hope that you learned something new about the wonderful world of human intimacy and sexuality, and join us next time as we dive into more fascinating research. And remember, science is for you. Music for this podcast was produced by SOUNDRAW.